Whenever you're looking at an ordinary priest like myself and Father Rory, you're looking at someone who has spent 6 years studying in the seminary in a kind of a third level college university environment. And whenever we give a homily or we might give advice and confession, we're speaking out of that amount of learning. But when you talk or listen to someone like Padre Pio, that Padre is a completely different kind of priest. He has spent 6 years in the seminary as well, but he has mystical insight. He can see into the spiritual world that is invisible to all of us, other mere mortals, regardless of how many books we have read or years we have studied. So when Padre Pio was celebrating Mass and when he was at the consecration, he was able to see Calvary like he was able to see the other landscape, as it were, within the church. When he was hearing confession, if someone wasn't straight with him, he would ask them to leave because they were wasting his time. Padre Pio could read souls, and there was always big queues for Padre Pio. So if someone was wasting time, he would just ask them to leave and he would hear the next confession. He was also able to speak to his angel if he had any particularly difficult questions. And of course, angels know everything pretty much that God does. And Padre Pio was tested on this in case he was bluffing, and he passed the test. So when Padre Pio says something to us, we should hear it much more clearly and better and remember it than something I would say to you, or indeed Father Rory would say to you, right? Okay. So I want to give you 2 quotes of Padre Pio on the importance of prayer. His first one is that prayer is the oxygen of the soul. If we don't have oxygen, we're dead in a couple of minutes, right? Okay. And if we don't pray, then we become spiritually dead. And to emphasize that, there is a second quote. Padre Pio said, "Those who pray have hope of salvation. Those who pray but a little are in grave danger," not a little bit of danger, but grave danger, "and those who don't pray are lost." Full stop. So now, I know that's very challenging. It's way outside of our normal scope of experience. But if it sounds challenging, don't blame me, blame Padre Pio. Now, I want to link that to what we just heard in the Gospel, and we heard about the first great commandment, that we should love God with our whole heart, our whole mind, our whole soul, and our whole strength. And the first way, the most indispensable way that we love God in this fashion is by being generous with our prayer time. If you think about lives today, we can spend hours every day watching junk television, reading junk newspapers, reading junk magazines, and looking at junk social media on the internet. And all of this stuff has no value in helping us to be more holy and to come closer to God and come closer to eternal life. In fact, much of it can have the opposite effect. And just imagine if we were to meet God halfway. We spend half of our time watching junk television, and we spend the other half of our time in prayer to completely rebalance our entire life. Prayer is so important because it's talking to God, and it's actually not just talking with God. We are mystically transported into his very presence. Imagine living with someone like your spouse, and you spend most of the day just completely ignoring them, and you might have a few basic words in the morning and in the evening. That would not be a right relationship at all. And that's the reason why in every parish where I'm at, coming into New Year's, I make a suggestion to people that for the new year, they would promise God that they would never go to bed any day until they have given him 20 minutes of prayer. And that is a minimum. Now, it's great if you can get to daily Mass, that's wonderful. But I also think as well too that apart from public liturgical prayer, it's also important to have private, personal, one-to-one time with God.